I was not a member or a part of any part of the political parties, any party, anywhere. And that conversation with Amin Rashid Chaudhry in 1966, until the day he died, Amin Rashid Chaudhry would never have forgotten that. So when Amin Rashid Chaudhry died, let me just check when he died. So there is no entry. There is no entry on the internet about Amin Rashid Chaudhry. And there is really no entry about the Jugaberry either. So I'll have to do the research and seek a hard copy for any reference to Amin Rashid Chaudhry and his time. But he belonged to a family of Muslim crooks that took over the Hindus' property left at the Jugoberi and the Ambarkhana estate. I knew all of that, and I would remind him, not him personally, because I met him less frequently than I met the editor, a Hindu editor of the Jugoberi when I was contributing to the Jugoberi. And I would remind them of the fact that the Rashid Chaudhurys had looted the properties of the Hindus that left their home in 1947, August 1947, as a result of the creation of the two independent states, Pakistan and India. And whatever he actually thought about the encounter with me in 1966, I don't believe that there was any similar incident or event in the history of Amin Rashid Chaudhry's control of the Jugoberi that he had to do what he had to do under my, shall we say, persuasive argument that he should actually publish the full details of the rally in the registrar fields near the Silot Keen Bridge, surrounded by the law courts in Silot, against the London Times newspaper running a comment, a derogatory, offensive comment written by Aubrey Waugh against the Prophet of Islam, peace be on him. The magnitude of the defeat by Amin Rashid Chaudhry at my hands can only be compared with the defeat by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, probably 2 years later at Dhaka in the Institute of Engineers. When Zulfikar Ali Bhutto came to East Pakistan, shortly after he was sacked by the then military president Ayub Khan, and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's stated purpose was to form hundreds of young men. And as I have recalled, at the meeting, at the rally, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto started by giving a spiel about 20 minutes long. And from that moment onwards, all the way he went downhill. And it was to do with the fact that I asked him questions. I asked him one question which he could not answer. I asked him another question which he didn't answer, up to the point of the ninth question that I asked So I have no record of, accessible at this moment, record of what Amin Rashid Chaudhry actually thought about his defeat at my hands. Nor do I have any accessible evidence, written or spoken or authored by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, about his defeat at my hands at the Institute of Engineers. So the encounter with Bhutto happened between 1966 and 1968, I would say, at the Institute of Engineers. And just like my encounter with Amin Rashid Chaudhry that happened in 1966 in Silot, I cannot access any evidence of either of those two combatants with me, reflecting and writing or on the record on their encounters with me. Essentially, what I'm saying is that historically, both those events were unprecedented. I don't believe that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto ever recovered from being defeated by me when I hurled 9 questions at him. It was in January 1970 that I was the main television news item on the political news in Pakistan, United Pakistan at that time in January 1970, on the Pakistan main television network. And the reason I was featured as the first news item politically on that channel, the main evening news channel, was a role I had played earlier on the day at an international Students' Hall, Students' Building event attended by university vice chancellors, college principals, and similar administrators to talk about education. And they were actually being used by the then government of Pakistan, to undermine the protests against the anti democratic behavior of the government. So they chose as the theme that particular event, student getting involved in politics, university higher education level students in getting involved in politics is undermining their academic work. Absolute bullshit. Because I had been involved throughout the 1960s in anti-government propaganda agitation, action, campaigns, rallies. In fact, I was prominent, so prominent, as a participant in the demonstration in 1968, the demonstration against the Zionist state of Israel held in Dhaka in 1968, that I was concerned about my parents getting worried about my prominence, because my parents wanted me to have nothing to do with politics, of course. So that picture would have meant that this would be an unforgettable picture, very expressive, very powerfully taken picture of me at the head of the march in Dhaka, in Nilkhet, in Dhaka. So I actually had to literally argue with the people that were releasing the picture of me at the part of the demonstration to not release that picture. And I pleaded with them that it was nothing to do with politics, it was to do with my parents' concern and alarm, etc., etc. I succeeded. I succeeded in persuading them not to release, but I don't believe that the picture has disappeared. The point I'm making is that I have been very politically active throughout, right from the beginning when I became politically engaged in 1954, with expressing support for the Jukto Front. The Jukto Front, led by Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani. I was not a member of the Bashani Jukto Front. I couldn't have been because I was not a member of a political party that the Jukto Front alliance was made of. But politically, I sympathized with the Jukto Front. And I opposed the Muslim League that the Jukto Front was opposing and successfully opposed at the 1954 election. So I have been actively on the streets politically from 1954. So if we look at the 1954 to what? Let's check. It's 70 years. So I have been politically actively on the streets for 70 years. Calendar years now, 74. 1954 to 2024. So what happened? I have been active politically to such an extent that I have not been able to find, not that I have been looking for, but I have not found So, although Zulfikar Ali Bhutto disagreed with the military boss Ayub Khan, who sacked him from Ayub Khan's government, he in fact agreed with Ayub Khan's culture and must have thought that the people of East Pakistan were of lower castes, etc., etc. He never imagined that I would be there. He would have no idea what kind of caste he could place me in. I know what kind of caste I am in, and I have been in. If there is a caste description, then I would belong to the highest possible caste in the whole of the population. But Bhutto didn't know that. When he delivered his 20-minute spiel at the Institute of Engineers, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto thought that he was on his way and that he has actually conquered the people of East Pakistan as represented demographically by the gathering of hundreds, if not thousands. Whatever the capacity was, it was full capacity at the Institute of Engineers. And then the questions began. Questions. was left out by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto from his introductory speech at the Institute of Engineers. So that's where I focused on very briefly. So the answer he gave was not acceptable because it left out again the context and the historic references and the framework. And then I followed by asking another question based on that inadequacy in his answer. And it went on for the ninth question. And all this time, these people, hundreds of people, if not thousands, gathered in the Institute of Engineers, where I was interrogating Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. I could not see or hear one single sign of anyone else raising any voice, either way. So one-sided was the me and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto that at the ninth question, instead of answering the ninth question, I had put to him, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto did an about turn, right turn, having shown his face absolutely red with outrage, frustration, sense of defeat, sense of embarrassment, sense of shame. And he did a march out of the Institute of Engineers straight away. What otherwise would have been a historic event, celebrated by splashes in the papers of West Pakistan at least, there was really hardly any coverage. I had put paid to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in such a definitive, conclusive way that he was written off for that purpose. So that was the event in 1960, between 66 and 1968. In January 1970, when I attended, initially as an observer, the Dhaka University Institute International Students Hall or Students Auditorium, I found that my question as to the rationale and the veracity of that meeting was not treated as a question. They invited me to join the main rostrum and address the gathering instead, which I did. They didn't tell me that they were recording this for broadcast. But in the evening of that day, I was the main, physically the visual main image, and they gave the short summary to go with that. So that happened in January 1970 in Dhaka, in East Pakistan. So 54 calendar years ago. I also attended a meeting of one of the international organizations held a press conference at the Intercontinental Hotel, not far from the Institute of Engineers, not far from the University of Dhaka. And I attended that meeting as the chief political correspondent of a newspaper I was attached to. And the coverage of that event, the report that I had filed, contained a picture of that event where I was shown as prominently sitting at the meeting. Now, that was in January 1970. Decades later, in London, I met a young person from Bangladesh who wanted to go to Dhaka and see his relations. He was here in the UK as a student. So I gave him a list of the newspaper clips that I wanted him to bring. When he came back, he told a pack of lies. He said that the regime of Sheikh Hasina had banned library research. I mean, I have never come across that kind of stupidity. But that picture of me is there on the record, as is the picture of me in the video broadcast by the Pakistan National Television in January 1970. What all of these show, contrary to some people thinking that if I was given a chance to join a government, I should have taken the chance. Any of these people watching this at any time, they may not be watching it now contemporaneously, but if they ever come across this, they should understand this about me. I am not a career. I am not a career or an opportunism. I am a morality. I am an entity of ethics and morality, absolutely universality. I cannot afford, in the moral context that I represent, I exist. I cannot afford to become part of somebody's ethics and morality that is not there. It's immorality. Immoral, unethical activities. So the affinity that I have with the thesis that baby angel Geronimo is universally innocent is based on the truth that baby angel is innocent, has never been contaminated, infected with any disease, bovine, tuberculosis, or whatever. And the baby angel Geronimo is vindicated by every event of interrogation, examination of facts and evidence. Baby angel is vindicated by the evidence concerning the lies, series of lies perpetrated by Boris Johnson, series of lies by the DEFRA criminals, series of lies by the George Injustice Justice, series of lies by Christian evilness, Middlemas, and so on. The baby angel Geronimo remains the world's most innocent baby angel Geronimo. And during the 2024, we shall be reporting on updating and giving further elucidation on the lessons from the battle that baby angel Geronimo has been fighting against the liars in the British judiciary, and the liars against the British government, corruption, the liars against the British members of parliament, corruption and criminality. We shall end this one at 01:24 hours GMT on Tuesday, the 2nd of January, 2024.